Good morning. I'm Denise Smiler, Chair of the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board. I would like to ask everyone to please silence your cell phones and all electronic devices at this time. Also, while masks are no longer mandatory, please feel free to wear one if you believe it is necessary or required for your own well-being. With 7 board members present, I'd like to now call today's meeting to order. In addition to the 7 board members, we also have our ex officio members, Alyssa Mueller, representing Pat Brown, Secretary for the Department of Revenue, and Jennifer Langen, representing Stacy Garrity, State Treasurer. Thank you, ex officios, for joining us. I'd like to now ask everyone to please rise and join me in a recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
By way of announcements, the board held an executive session yesterday, Tuesday, February 20th, to discuss personnel matters pending litigation and to conduct quasi-judicial deliberations relating to matters coming before the board. Additionally, during yesterday's executive session, we also held a closed hearing, which will be addressed by our Chief Counsel, Steve Cook.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. As you know, later this morning, you'll be considering a consent agreement negotiated between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and Mountain View Thoroughbred Racing Association, which pertains to a lapse in Mountain View's interactive gaming security protocols. The nature of that consent agreement and the remedial measures taken by Mountain View since the issue was uncovered involve significant disclosure of sensitive security information, and because of that, the parties jointly filed a motion seeking both protection for confidential documents filed of record and to allow Mountain View and Enforcement Counsel to present information about the breaches which occurred and what has been done to prevent them going forward in a closed hearing before the board. Upon review of the information which the parties sought to present, as well as the confidentiality provisions found at Section 1206F of the Pennsylvania Racehorse Development and Gaming Act and Section 708A5 and 7 of the Pennsylvania Sunshine Act, the board's Office of Chief Counsel advised the board that it would be both proper and prudent to hear the information in a closed session. Having done that yesterday afternoon during the board's executive session, it would now be appropriate to grant the joint motion seeking confidential information or confidential treatment of information nunc pro tunc. And I'd ask for such a motion.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Having heard from the parties during yesterday's closed executive session, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board grant nunc pro tunc Mountain View Thoroughbred Racing Associations and the Office of Enforcement Counsel's joint motion to protect the confidential security information and to present confidential security information during executive session.
Commissioner Dillon seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next order of business this morning is the consideration of the board meeting transcript and minutes from the November 15th, 2023 meeting. May I have a motion to approve the transcript and minutes of that meeting, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dillon moves that the board approve the minutes and transcripts of November 15th, 2023 meeting.
Commissioner Hickernell seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted. Now we will hear from our Administrative Director, Claire Yantis, and our Compulsive and Problem Gambling Director, Liz Lanza.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Claire Yantis, Y-A-N-T-I-S. As most of you are aware, March is a very important month for our agency. For several years, March has been recognized as Problem Gambling Awareness Month. This is significant because it represents a time where focus is placed on raising awareness of the social issues involving gambling. With me today is our Director of the Office of Compulsive and Problem Gambling, Liz Lanza. The Office of Compulsive and Problem Gambling continuously educates and informs the public about various tools and resources available to address the potential social and financial issues related to problem gambling. But before Liz begins her presentation, I would like to take a moment and remember Elizabeth Birch, known as Bissell, who unexpectedly passed away in December. For almost 15 years, Bissell was an integral part of the Office of Compulsive and Problem Gambling and was responsible for administering the board's self-exclusion program. She approached her job with great compassion and care for individuals in need of assistance affected by gambling addiction. Please join me in taking a moment of silence to remember Bissell and the tremendous impact she had on the agency and the industry. Thank you. I'll now turn the presentation to Liz, who will present a resolution specifically highlighting the awareness and attention to problem gambling during the month of March.
Thank you, and thank you for that beautiful remembrance. Good morning, Chair and members of the board. As Claire mentioned, March is Problem Gambling Awareness Month, better known by its acronym PGAM. Starting as a small, week-long grassroots outreach effort in 2003, PGAM has grown into a national, month-long annual campaign that is recognized in most U.S. states and beyond. The goal of PGAM is to bring recognition to the devastating effects of gambling addiction and the resources available to those who develop this preventable and treatable disease. Through public advocacy, PGAM participants work to promote the value and importance of prevention, treatment, and recovery tools available to those affected by gambling disorder. In March, the Office of Compulsive and Problem Gambling will work with other state agencies to provide outreach on Pennsylvania programs, like the board's self-exclusion programs. In 2023, the OCPG received the highest number of self-exclusion enrollment requests than any preceding year. In fact, the number of enrollments for the calendar year grew by about 1,400 enrollments. Since the inception of the program in 2006, the OCPG has received and processed over 30,000 requests for enrollment in self-exclusion. It is the goal of the OCPG to ensure the program continues to evolve by using best practices so the self-exclusion program remains effective and grows to encompass the needs of everyone who enrolls. The OCPG will also continue to work with PGCB licensees to ensure the appropriate tools are in place to detect and assist individuals who may be displaying signs of a gambling problem. We will also continue our joint efforts with the Department of Drug and Alcohol Programs, the Pennsylvania Lottery, and the Council on Compulsive Gambling of Pennsylvania to ensure that all resources and programs are only a click or call away. Today, I ask the board to continue its support of PGAM and adopt the resolution before you today, proclaiming March 2024 as Problem Gambling Awareness Month. As always, thank you for your time and your continued support.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board approve the resolution 2024-1-CPG as described by the Director of Compulsive and Problem Gambling.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you, Claire and Liz. Now we will hear from our Human Resources Director, Danette Bixler-George.
Good morning, Chair, board members. The Office of Human Resources has one motion today for your consideration relative to the hiring of 4 individuals. All 4 individuals have completed the PGCB interview process, drug screening, and background investigation. Victor Rojas Granda has been selected as a casino compliance representative at Wind Creek Casino, and Jacob Cowden has been selected as a technical field representative at the Meadows Casino, and both are recommended for hire by Greg Hazori, Director of Casino Compliance. Andreas Guihebri has been selected as a sports wagering compliance representative in the Office of Sports Wagering Operations and is recommended for hire by Kevin Kyle, Director of Sports Wagering Operations. And finally, Kenyon Kelly has been selected as an electronics engineer in the Office of Gaming Laboratory Operations and is recommended for hire by Heather Warner, Director of Gaming Laboratory Operations. Unless you have questions, I ask that the board consider a motion to approve the hiring actions as indicated.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Hickrell moves that the board approve the applicants for hire as proposed by the Human Resources Director.
Commissioner Manzano-Diaz, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you, Danette. Next is our Office of Chief Counsel.
Morning again. Our first agenda item under the Office of Chief Counsel relate to a temporary regulation and a statement of policy, which Assistant Chief Counsel Robert Wood will present.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. As Steve said, today I have two items for the board's consideration. The first item is a temporary rulemaking number 125-248, which is comprised of rules and procedure governing 13 side wagers and/or variations on table games. Prior to this morning's meeting, the board has been provided with copies of this temporary rulemaking. If there are no questions, I would ask for a motion adopting temporary rulemaking 125-248.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Manzano-Diaz moves that the board adopt temporary regulation number 125-248 regarding temporary table game side wagers and variations as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
The second item I have this morning for you is a statement of policy numbered 125-249. This statement of policy relates to direct bet coupons and will allow board licensees to begin to undertake the processes necessary to develop and implement systems and controls for direct bet coupon promotional programs. Prior to this morning's meeting, again, a copy was provided for the board's consideration. If there are no questions, I would ask a motion to adopt statement of policy numbered 125-249.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board adopt statement of policy 125-249 regarding direct bet coupons as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Dillon seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Next before the board today are 4 petitions. Each of these petitions will be decided on the documentary record by agreement of the parties or because the Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection to the requested relief. In each of these matters, the board has been provided with the complete evidentiary record in advance of today's meeting. The first petition before the board today is Aristocrat Technology, Inc.'s Nunc Pro Tunc petition requesting a reduction of its table game manufacturer license fee. By way of background, Aristocrat Technologies is a table game manufacturer whose license was renewed in October of 2023. The license fee for a manufacturer is $150,000. The renewal fee is $150,000. However, per board guidelines, manufacturers can request a reduction in the license fee if their average annual sales in the past 5 years have been less than $150,000, in which case the fee can be reduced to $15,000. Aristocrat states in its petition it has not sold any table games or table game manufacturing systems in the past 5 years, asserting that its only revenue in Pennsylvania comes from maintenance fees from servicing table games management systems, and therefore, during each of the past 5 years, they have not exceeded the $150,000 income threshold. Aristocrat further explains in their request that when they applied for their renewal license in May of 2022, they did not include the form requesting a modified renewal fee because they mistakenly believed that it was to be filed after the license was approved. Aristocrat did, in fact, file the form for a reduced fee soon after their renewal license was approved. The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection to the request after confirming Aristocrat Technology's sales have been below the threshold and therefore support the imposition of a reduced renewal fee. OEC does not object to Aristocrat's request for confidentiality in some of the documents as well, and it seeks certain sensitive business information not be publicly disclosed, and this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board grant Aristocrat Technology, Inc. petition as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
The next matter before the board is a petition from Neo Game Solutions, LLC, Paraplay USA Limited, Aristocrat Technology Gaming Systems, Pty Limited, and Anaxi Investments Limited. Each of these parties are affiliated with either Aristocrat Leisure Limited or Neo Games SA. Through a business combination agreement approved by the shareholders of Neo Games SA by a vote in July of 2023, Aristocrat Leisure Limited is seeking to purchase NeoGames SA, resulting in a change of control of two Pennsylvania licensees. NeoGame Solutions LLC, a licensed sports wagering and interactive gaming manufacturer, and Paraplay USA Limited, a licensed interactive gaming manufacturer. Both companies are wholly owned through intermediaries by NeoGames SA. Aristocrat Technology Gaming Systems Pty Limited, Aristocrat Technologies Australia Pty Limited, and Aristocrat Technologies Incorporated are wholly owned by Aristocrat Leisure Limited. Excuse me. The parties aver that this transaction will combine the expertise, brands, and assets of both Aristocrat Leisure Limited and NeoGames to provide better service to customers across different platforms, and it will benefit Pennsylvania's gaming industry, allowing it to both grow and boost tax revenue. The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection to the parties' request for a change of control, subject to conditions outlined in this answer, and this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Regan moves that the board grant the joint petition of NeoGame Solutions LLC, Paraplay US Limited, Aristocrat Technology Gaming Systems Pty Limited, and Annexi Investments Limited as described by the Office of Chief Counsel. I further move that the Office of Enforcement Counsel's request for confidentiality be denied.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes.
The next petition before the board is Tejas Ajmeri's petition for removal from the board's involuntary exclusion list. By way of background, on July 2nd, 2016, Mr. Ajmeri attempted to utilize a false ID to gain access to the Mount Airy Casino. He was charged with summary offense, and subsequently the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a petition to place Mr. Ajmeri on the involuntary exclusion list. Thereafter, on November 16, 2016, the board placed Mr. Ajmeri on the list until at least his 22nd birthday, which occurred on January 23, 2019, at which time he was permitted to request removal from the list. Mr. Ajmeri has now filed his request for removal from the involuntary exclusion list, and OEC has no objection to that request, and this matter is now ready for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board grant Tejas Ajmeri's petition for removal from the involuntary exclusion list as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Dillon seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
The final petition before the board is another request for removal from the involuntary exclusion list. On February 18, 2018, while playing mini baccarat at Sugar House Casino, Lai Nguyen was involved in a cheating scheme between the dealer and another patron. Specifically, Mr. Nguyen noticed that the dealer was not collecting losing wagers and therefore took advantage of the dealer's actions, resulting in the dealer not collecting $8,000 in losing wagers from Mr. Nguyen. Mr. Nguyen was not criminally charged and made full restitution to Sugar House. He was, however, permanently evicted by that casino. In March of 2018, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a petition to place Mr. Nguyen on the involuntary exclusion list, and the board granted that request on August 18, or during August of 2018, placing him on the list. Mr. Nguyen is now requesting removal from the involuntary exclusion list. The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objections, as 5 years has passed since his placement on the list, and there's no evidence that he violated the board's order or has been involved in any criminal activity, and this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dillon moves that the board grant Lai Nguyen's petition from removal from the involuntary exclusion list as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Hickernell seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Next, presenting withdrawals and reports and recommendations is Deputy Chief Counsel Chad Zimmerman.
Good morning, Commissioners. The next matter before the board today pertains to several unopposed petitions to withdraw applications or surrender the credentials of the following individuals and entities: Richard Brown, Lars Eric Stugemo, Jette Nygaard Anderson, David Karen, Moira McHarry, Ann C. Woods, John M. Collins, Ben Werner Johansson, Gordon Scieri, Joseph Simon, and Efor Evans. The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objections to any of these withdrawals or surrenders. As a result, if the board chooses to grant the request, in every case it would be doing so without prejudice to the requester, and these matters are all now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Hickenell moves that the board issue orders to approve the withdrawals and surrenders as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Manzano Diaz, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Next before the board for consideration are 6 reports and recommendations received from the Office of Hearings and Appeals. These reports and recommendations, along with the evidentiary record for each hearing, have been provided to the board in advance of today's meeting. Additionally, the persons involved in each have been notified that the board is considering their matter today and that each may have the ability to come forward and briefly address the board. If any of the persons who are the subject of these reports and recommendations would like to address the board, I would ask them to come forward when their matter is called. The first report and recommendation before the board today pertains to Target Media Ads Limited. In November of 2022, Target Media Ads submitted a gaming service provider registration application seeking to provide advertising services to gaming companies in Pennsylvania. Thereafter, in August of 2023, the Office of Enforcement Counsel sent a notice recommending denial of Target Media Ads' application and additionally requesting that they be placed on the prohibited gaming service provider list after discovering that the company's 100% owner and CEO, Gil Evan, was unsuitable for licensure due to his conviction for securities fraud. A hearing in this matter was held on November 16, 2023. Both OEC and Mr. Evan appeared at the hearing. Mr. Evan testified that he lives in Israel, serves in his country's military, is a father, and lives in a farming community, serving on his community's council. Mr. Evan testified to the specifics of his securities fraud conviction, explaining that Israel had recently allowed farmers to grow cannabis for pharmaceutical purposes, and a friend of his owned a large farm, decided to enter the business, and started a private company. The company, however, was preparing to become public around the same time that Israel began allowing companies to export cannabis. Mr. Evan's friend kept him apprised of all of this information about the company, leading Mr. Evan to buy stock and ultimately profit from the transaction. Mr. Evan testified that his decision to buy the stock was an honest mistake, not realizing that it was illegal, stating that he made only approximately $2,000 on his investment. He was criminally charged under Israel's securities law, confessing prior to the charge being filed. He was sentenced to 4.5 months of community service, fined $10,000, and a 1-year suspended jail sentence that he would have to serve if he committed an additional securities crime. Following a hearing, a report and recommendation was issued recommending that Target Media Ads Limited's application be denied and that they be placed on the prohibited GSP list, and this matter is now ready for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Manzano Diaz moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and that Target Media Ads Ltd.'s application for gaming service provider registration be denied, and that Target Media Ads Ltd. be placed on the prohibited gaming services providers list.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Next before the board is a report and recommendation regarding Venture Gaming LLC. Venture Gaming LLC was granted a video gaming terminal operator license in October 2022, allowing them to place and operate VGTs in licensed truck stop establishments. In January 2023, Venture Gaming filed a petition requesting approval of an employee incentive program. Generally, the program would offer a cash payment to employees of a truck stop establishment with which Venture Gaming has a terminal placement agreement if the employee gets a gaming employee occupation permit. The Office of Enforcement Counsel filed an answer objecting to Venture Gaming's petition, stating that the incentive program violates the Video Gaming Act section on inducement, whereby the Act prohibits inducements to be paid to a truck stop establishment licensee owner, or the employee of establishment licensee directly or indirectly. Counsel for each of the parties filed a stipulation of facts June 2023. They mutually agreed that a hearing was not necessary, and all parties submitted briefs in support of their positions. Venture Gaming argued in their brief that the inducement prohibition does not apply to their program, that the program will not offset any of the establishment's operational costs, and that the exception in the definition of inducement stated applies to their program because it addresses costs related to making video gaming terminals operate in the Commonwealth. Venture additionally argues that the program is intended to benefit the video gaming industry by encouraging employees of establishments to obtain gaming permits, allowing more permanent employees to oversee the video gaming areas. OEC's brief argues that the inducement section of the Act does apply to the program, prohibiting the same, that the program is a way to solicit additional terminal placement agreements, and that the program is a way to offset operational costs. It also indicates that the exception in the Act does not apply because the exception only covers the costs of placing the VGTs in establishments. Following the submission of and the review of all the briefs, a report and recommendation was issued recommending that the board deny Venture Gaming's petition. Venture Gaming did file exceptions to this recommendation, and this matter is now ready for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board reject the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and that Venture Gaming LLC's petition for approval of a proposed gaming employee cash incentive program be granted. I further move that the petitioner's request for confidentiality be granted.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes.
Bradford Blakeney is the next report and recommendation before the board today. Mr. Blakeney had been issued a non-gaming employee registration in July 2023. He worked as an environmental services attendant for Team Clean. On November 9, 2023, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a complaint for emergency suspension of Mr. Blakeney's registration after receiving notice that he had been criminally charged with a felony, misdemeanor, and summary offenses. As a result of the charges, the board's executive director issued an emergency suspension suspending Mr. Blakeney's registration. A hearing in this matter was held December 7th of 2023. OEC appeared and provided testimony and documentary evidence. Mr. Blakeney failed to appear at the hearing. Evidence presented showed that on October 10th, 2023, while visiting his son, Mr. Blakeney was asked to leave the residence, presumably by the child's mother. Mr. Blakeney became irate and physically attacked the child's mother, choking, slamming her across the bed, and striking her multiple times. Consequently, a report and recommendation was issued recommending that the suspension of his registration remain in effect, and this matter is now ready for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and that the emergency suspension of Bradford Blakeney's non-gaming employee registration remain in effect.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Next is a report and recommendation pertaining to a request to recover funds confiscated from an individual with the initials BJ while on the self-exclusion list. The Office of Enforcement Counsel filed an answer objecting to the request. A hearing in this matter was held in October 2023. Counsel for OEC appeared and presented evidence and exhibits in support of their position. BJ appeared and testified on his own behalf. The underlying facts in this matter are that in May of 2011, BJ met with a board employee and enrolled on the self-exclusion list for a 5-year period. BJ signed all the acknowledgments, which included an acknowledgment that he was prohibited from collecting winnings from any gaming activity while on the self-exclusion list. In May of 2023, BJ, while gaming at Hollywood York Casino, won a $1,302 jackpot. When asked to provide his identification after his winning, it was discovered that he was still on the board's self-exclusion list, and the jackpot was confiscated, as well as a $17.10 voucher. BJ acknowledged during his testimony that he made a mistake by not removing himself from the list. That life changes and moving several times since placing himself on the list, he believes he lost the signed paperwork and that it was an honest mistake on his part, and that as soon as he was told he was still on the list, he took the steps to remove himself. Following a hearing, a report and recommendation was issued recommending that BJ be permitted to recover the value of the voucher, which is $17.10, but the $1,300 confiscated were winnings that were subject to remittance to the board. This matter is now ready for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, that BJ's petition be granted in part, and that $17.10 be returned to him.
Commissioner Dillon seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
SG's request to recover funds confiscated from her is the subject of the next report and recommendation. The Office of Enforcement Counsel filed an answer objecting to SG's request. A hearing in this matter was held in October of 2023. OEC appeared and presented testimony and documentary evidence. SG appeared and testified on her own behalf. On August 19, 2019, SG met with a casino compliance representative at Parks Casino and submitted a request to be placed on the self-exclusion list, choosing a one-year exclusion period. SG signed all the necessary paperwork, including an acknowledgement that she was prohibited from collecting winnings while on the self-exclusion list. On April 22, 2023, prior to SG removing herself from the list, she gamed at Park Shippensburg Casino, winning $1,530. After winning, she switched seats with another patron. However, upon a Parks employee arriving to pay out the jackpot, was informed that SG had actually won the jackpot. It was discovered that when SG presented her identification to Parks personnel that she was on the board's self-exclusion list, and her jackpot, as well as a voucher for $83.98, was confiscated. She was charged with and pled guilty to criminal trespass. SG testified that 4 months prior to the incident at Parks, she had gamed at Hollywood Casino, believing that since more than a year had passed since self-excluding, she was no longer on the list. She further testified that while at Hollywood, she had presented her ID to get a cash advance, which she was permitted to do. SG argued that had she been flagged at Hollywood as being on the self-exclusion list, she would have immediately taken the steps to remove herself. Following the hearing, a report and recommendation was issued recommending that SG be permitted to recover the $83.98 value of the voucher, but the jackpot was winnings and subject to confiscation. This matter, SG did file exceptions to the recommendation, which reiterated her testimony from the hearing, and this matter is now ready for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dillon moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, that SG's petition be granted in part, and that $83.98 be returned to her.
Commissioner Hickernell seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Celestine in Washington's request to recover funds confiscated from her as a subject of the final report and recommendation. The Office of Enforcement Counsel filed an answer objecting to her request. By way of background, in November of 2017, OEC filed a petition seeking to place Ms. Washington on the involuntary exclusion list, alleging that she and another individual broke into a vehicle at Parks Casino parking lot and stole items from inside the vehicle. Ms. Washington never responded to the petition, and in May of 2018, the board placed her on the involuntary exclusion list. On January 26, 2023, Ms. Washington filed a petition requesting to recover funds confiscated from her at Rivers Casino, Philadelphia. OEC filed an answer objecting in part to the request. A hearing was held in October of 2023. OEC appeared and presented testimony, documentary, and surveillance evidence, and although she received proper notice, Ms. Washington failed to appear for the hearing and was held in her absence. At the hearing, it was determined that on January 26, 2023, Ms. Washington entered the casino and she was not asked to provide identification. While gaming, she won a jackpot of over $1,300, which casino staff held until she could provide proper identification. Moments later, Ms. Washington won a second jackpot in the amount of $4,544.78. She provided ID at this point, and it was discovered that she was an involuntary excluded person. Her jackpots were confiscated, as well as $219 in credits that she had on the machine at the time. After hearing the evidence presented, the report and recommendation issued recommends that Ms. Washington be permitted to recover the value of her credits on the machine only, and the rest is winnings. This matter is now ready for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Hickernell moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and that Celestine Washington's petition be granted in part, and that $219.40 be returned to her.
Commissioner Manzano-Diaz, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
That concludes the matters of the Office of Chief Counsel. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve, Chad, and Robert. We will now have the Bureau of Licensing matters presented by the Director of the Bureau of Licensing, Sean Hannon.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. Today's first licensing matter for your consideration is approval of an interactive gaming manufacturer license for Roxor Gaming Limited. Formed in the United Kingdom in 2019, Roxor Gaming Limited's principal place of business is in London, England. The company develops and supplies a variety of online gaming content and was granted interim authorization on December 21st, 2023. The Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement has completed its investigation of the company, and the Bureau of Licensing has provided you with a background investigation and suitability report. I have provided you with a draft order and asked the board consider the order to approve the interactive gaming manufacturer license for Roxor Gaming Limited.
Good morning. The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Manzano-Diaz moves that the board grant the interactive gaming manufacturer license as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Next, we have consideration of the renewal of an interactive gaming manufacturer license for Konami Gaming Incorporated. Konami Gaming is licensed in good standing as a slot machine, table game, interactive gaming, and video gaming terminal manufacturer. Under the Gaming Act, the board may use an abbreviated process to consider the application of a currently licensed manufacturer. The Bureau of Licensing, Office of Enforcement Counsel, and the Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement have reviewed the application for an interactive gaming manufacturer license for Konami Gaming Incorporated, and I have provided you with the results of that review. I have provided you with a draft order and asked the board consider the order to approve the interactive gaming manufacturer license renewal for Konami Gaming Incorporated.
Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board grant the interactive gaming manufacturer license renewal as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Next is consideration of a VGT establishment license for CHR Corp. doing business as Rutter's Store Number 82. They were previously approved for a conditional license. The Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement has now completed its investigation, including evaluation that the applicant meets the VGT establishment eligibility criteria in the Gaming Act. The Bureau of Licensing has provided you with a background investigation and suitability report. I have provided you with a draft order and ask that you consider the order to license CHR Corp. doing business as Rutter's Store Number 82, located at 432 Sabbath Rest Road in Altoona.
Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Regan moves that the board grant the video gaming terminal establishment license as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Next, there are principal, key employee, and qualifier licenses. The Bureau of Licensing provided you with a proposed order for 15 principals, 12 key employees, and 2 qualifiers. I ask the board consider the order approving these licenses.
Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board grant the principal, key employee, and qualifier licenses as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Dillon seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
There are also principal and key employee temporary credentials. The Bureau of Licensing provided you with an order regarding the issuance of temporary credentials for 7 principals and 18 key employees. I ask the board consider the order approving these credentials.
Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dillon moves that the board grant the temporary principal and key employee credentials as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Hickernell seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Next for your consideration are gaming employee permits and non-gaming employee registrations. The Bureau of Licensing has provided you with a list of 858 individuals to whom the Bureau has granted temporary or full occupation permits and 307 individuals to whom the Bureau has granted registrations under the authority delegated to the Bureau of Licensing. I ask that the board consider a motion approving the order.
Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Hickernell moves that the board approve the applications for gaming employee occupation permits and non-gaming employee registrations as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Manzano-Diaz second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Next, there is a recommendation of denial for 1 gaming and 1 non-gaming applicant. The Bureau of Licensing has provided you with the order addressing the applicants who the Office of Enforcement Counsel has recommended for denial. I ask that the board consider the order approving these denials.
Enforcement Counsel continues to request denial in each matter.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Manzano-Diaz moves that the board deny the gaming and non-gaming employee applications as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
The next matter for your consideration is withdrawal requests. In each case, the license, permit, or registration is no longer required. For today's meeting, I have provided the board with 54 gaming and 40 non-gaming applicants. I ask that the board consider the order approving these withdrawals.
Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston, sorry, lost my spot. Commissioner Ralston moves that the board grant the withdrawal of gaming and non-gaming employee applications as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
In addition, we have an order to renew the certification for Global Surveillance Associates Incorporated, who is a gaming service provider. I have provided you with a draft order and asked the board consider the order certifying the company.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Regan moves that the board approve the gaming service provider certification as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Finally, for consideration are gaming service provider registrations. The Bureau of Licensing provides you with an order and an attached list of 7 registered gaming service provider applicants. I ask that the board consider the order registering these gaming service providers.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board approve the gaming service provider registrations as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Dillon seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Sean. Next is the Office of Enforcement Counsel, Cyrus Petrie. Cyrus?
Morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. The Office of Enforcement Counsel will present 14 matters today for the board's consideration, in which we will request the approval of 3 consent agreements, 4 revocations, and 7 involuntary exclusions. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and Category 2 licensee Sugar House HSP Gaming LP, doing business as Rivers Casino, Philadelphia. The matter will be presented by Senior Enforcement Counsel Michael Rowland. Representatives for the licensed facility are present, and at this time I request that those individuals please introduce themselves for the record, and that all non-attorney witnesses please stand and be sworn.
Good morning. John Donnelly on behalf of Sugar House HSP. Also with me is Mr. McLean, who is the general manager, or the manager of security at Sugar House.
Is Mr. McLean an attorney? Mr. Donnelly, is Mr. McLean an attorney?
No, he is not, so he should be sworn.
Yes, he should be sworn. Could you please stand to be sworn? Thank you, sir.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Morning, Madam Chair, and members of the board. Michael Rowland, ROL A&D with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. This proposed consent agreement involves minimum security staffing violations and a failure to provide notification by Rivers Casino, Philadelphia. Regarding the minimum security staffing violations, between January 2nd, 2022 and December 24th, 2022, Rivers Philadelphia failed to meet the minimum security staffing requirements for 40 gaming days. During a portion of this time period, Rivers Philadelphia was granted temporary security department minimum staffing relief. Despite the temporary security department minimum staffing relief, Rivers Philadelphia was still unable to maintain the necessary security staffing requirements. Regarding the failure to notify, on or about September 18th, 2022, a Rivers Philadelphia patron claimed that he dropped his slot voucher on the casino floor. A review of surveillance footage was conducted and showed the patron dropping the voucher while waiting in line at the main cage. An unidentified male was observed entering the line, picking up the dropped voucher, cashing the voucher at main cage window number 2, and then exiting the casino. The voucher was in the amount of $444.95. The male patron who cashed the voucher was never identified. Although security was notified of the incident by the patron, notification was not made to the Bureau of Casino Compliance and the Pennsylvania State Police by security until 2 days later on September 20th, 2022. The Office of Enforcement Counsel now requests that the board approve this consent agreement and stipulation of settlement entered into between the parties. The terms of the settlement include that Rivers Philadelphia shall pay a civil penalty in the amount of $65,000 to the board within 5 days of the board's order approving this consent agreement. Also, within 5 days, Rivers Philadelphia shall pay the board $2,500 for the costs incurred by the Office of Enforcement Counsel and other related staff in connection with this matter. And if you have any questions, we'd be happy to address them at this time.
Rivers Casino, Philadelphia, would you like to address the board?
No, we have, we'll stand by the consent. Mr. Glenn is here to answer questions if necessary, but I think the stipulation points it out. The only thing I would add is COVID times, and it's difficult getting people, difficult keeping people, and there were no events that occurred as a result of this, missing the staffing. As to the other matter, the patron wasn't required to be identified, the patron who picked up the voucher, and so no one knows who the person who picked up the voucher was. It's $444. So that's all I have.
Any questions or comments from the board? Commissioner Mazzano Diaz.
Thank you. Could you please tell me what have you done since then to remedy the situation?
Well, as to the staffing, it's constantly a problem, especially in Philadelphia and especially with security. And Glenn and I were talking about it today. It's just a constant problem that we're working on all the time. We've put in and received relief from some staffing already, worked with Cyrus's and Michael's on-property compliance officer, Mr. Quinn, who's been very helpful. We think and will be seeking more relief because we don't think that the requirements that are currently in place are necessary under the circumstances. And it is a difficult ongoing problem. It's kind of a nationwide problem of finding good help and good help that will stay. I don't have a solution to that societal problem. What Glenn and I were talking about earlier is that oftentimes people don't make it past the probationary period because they can't meet the attendance requirements. Again, kind of a societal problem. And so I don't have a great answer. I don't think anybody does to this problem right now. COVID changed a lot of things in America.
So if I understand you correctly, you're letting us know that this is a continuous problem and that you don't have a solution for it?
Well, we hire people and train them, and we're staffed up to staff right now, but it's a constant turnover. I don't know what the solution there is to that other than keeping hiring, training, trying to find the best people, and that's what we're doing. That's all we can do.
Mr. Donnelly, I'd like to hear from your client. Are there any programs that you're implementing to incentivize people to remain on the job?
Absolutely. Recently, we have increased our staffing levels and our staff. What we have done recently is open up job fairs. Okay, we have our walk-in Wednesday like today between 10 and 12. We have a lot of people who show up for these events. So our solution is to increase our hiring data during those periods. Recently, that has been beneficial for us. Myself, last week, I brought 8 extra individuals on property. So we are increasing our staffing levels. Before we were in the 20s, like per shift. Like our swing shift now is 35. And our other shifts are increasing. So I think with the job fairs and our hiring status and to be consistent at it, I think that's our solution right there, if you ask me. Because we've seen progress in the last couple, within a month or so. Our numbers have increased.
I will add some other things, too. We've added cameras. We've added cameras outside. We now have metal detectors at all the doors and so on. So it's constantly increasing security. But security has been effective in Sugar House, and we haven't had any significant events in Sugar House. It's been a safe place.
I'm just surprised that that given that you're in the Philadelphia metropolitan area, that your efforts to hire people seems to be a constant problem. And what I'm concerned about is, will you be back here again to ask for more relief in the future? Or have you found an equilibrium whereby you're able to address the problem? Because it doesn't appear that you're actually addressing the problem. You're telling me it's a societal problem.
Well, I think all we can do is what Glenn spoke about, constantly hiring, having job fairs, getting people in, hiring them, training them, and working with them to stay in the job. That's it. There's always been turnover in security at every casino I've ever been in. It's a tough job. It's not a widely sought-after job, and it's all we can do is just keep working as hard as we can and address a lot of it with cameras, surveillance, and other things such as the metal detectors and the surveillance programs. But I emphasize, we haven't had a problem. So we've had sufficient security there. It hasn't been an incident that's related to a lack of security.
Two questions. How are you advertising these job fairs and open Wednesdays? I live in Philly. I have not seen any of these ads, so.
Well, I mean, we definitely have lines all outside with individuals coming in. I think it's through our marketing team getting it through the radio airwaves and things of that nature, because there's something working with the marketing team. Because like I said, last week I was there myself, the lines were like out and about. And basically to piggyback off what he was saying, before the COVID times, we were well-staffed. We didn't have the issue. We went 13 years being very effective as far as staffing and everything. Since COVID hit, the pre-COVID, that changed everything. So it's more like a rebuilding to get us back to where we need. And at this particular time, I'm seeing the progress with these constant job fairs and everything to settle that. So we shouldn't be coming back here in the future with the same. I just don't see it. I think we found partial of the solution with this walk-in Wednesday and things of that nature. I think we headed in the right direction.
It sounds like these job fairs and walk-in Wednesdays are effective, but the question I asked is, once you can get these people hired, which sounds like you're doing a good job of hiring people, what are you doing to keep them?
Well, you know, we put an effective training system in. We're trying to give the people the motivation to stay and let them know how great our company is to work for. I mean, I've been doing it for 45 years. Now I'm in Philadelphia, and I try to, you know, get them uplifted to stay. So we're working with all kind of techniques. Matter of fact, that's what I do. I'm there on Tuesdays. They call me in, give a spiritual upliftment speech, and I'm doing everything I can. And it's work. I think it's working. I think we'll be fine. I don't think you'll see me back here sitting at this table again in the near future, unless it's something else very good. So,
I hope not.
We'll see.
We're seeing an improvement post-COVID in every property. It's coming back, people are coming back to work. But
Any other questions or comments?
No.
No. Okay. Any questions for the Office of Enforcement Counsel? All right. Hearing none, I'd like to have a motion, please.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dillon moves that the board approve the consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and Sugar House HSP Gaming, LP, doing business as Rivers Casino, Philadelphia, as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Hickernell seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and Category 1 licensee and interactive gaming certificate holder, Mountain View Thoroughbred Racing Association, LLC, doing business as Hollywood Casino at Penn National. The matter will be presented by Senior Enforcement Counsel John Crow. Representatives for the licensee are present. And at this time, I request that those individuals please introduce themselves for the record, and all non-attorney witnesses please stand and be sworn.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Adrian King, it's Adrian King, King, from the Ballard Spar firm here from Mountain View Thoroughbred Racing Association and Penn Interactive Ventures. Also here is my partner, Michael Fabius, Fabius. And also with us this morning is Mr. Adam Cates, who's the Senior Director of Compliance for Penn Interactive Ventures, and that's Kates. And Mr. Cates will need to be sworn in.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board.
Mr. Crow, before you begin,
I apologize.
I'd just like to note for the record that this matter for which the board held a confidential hearing yesterday focusing on Penn Entertainment's remedial security measures was held so that the board is very well versed regarding the situation, so we don't need a very in-depth description of the transaction and what's been taking place. So thank you, Mr. Crow. You may proceed.
Thank you. Once again, John Crowe, Crohe, for the Office of Enforcement Counsel. Good morning, Chair, members of the board. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a consent agreement reached between Mountain View Thoroughbred Racing Association, LLC, doing business as Hollywood Casino, at Penn National Racecourse, and the Office of Enforcement Counsel concerning 5 incidents of interactive gaming Know Your Customer requirement violations. Regarding the first violation, between December 9th, 2020 and March 18th, 2021, 29 perpetrators created 277 accounts on the Barstool iGaming platform and deposited $223,563 using stolen credit card information. 98 withdrawals totaling $81,396 were made to bank accounts controlled by the perpetrators. Regarding the second violation, from September 20th, 2020 through December 3rd, 2020, one individual created 132 Barstool accounts and deposited $6,443 among these accounts. On January 7th, 2021, the same perpetrator created 67 additional accounts using the personal identifying information of other individuals and deposited an additional $600. Regarding the third violation, between December 1st, 2019 and December 18th, 2019, one individual created 186 Hollywood Casino accounts. There were no attempts to deposit or withdraw any funds from any of these accounts. Regarding the fourth violation, between September 17th, 2021 and December 10th, 2021, one individual created 41 Barstool accounts, deposited $800 and withdrew $195. Regarding the fifth violation, on August 30th, 2021, 7 Barstool accounts were created by 2 individuals. None of the accounts created using the personal identifying information were funded. Of other individuals were funded. Penn National failed to have sufficient procedures to prevent the fraudulent behavior as described. Insufficient Know Your Customer protocols allow for the creation, access, and use of multiple accounts by individuals, the creation of accounts using the personal identifying information of other individuals, the funding of accounts using stolen or fraudulently obtained payment devices, and the withdrawing of funds into accounts controlled by the perpetrators, which constitutes violations of the relevant sections of the Act and regulations promulgated thereunder. The Office of Enforcement Counsel and Mountain View Thoroughbred Racing Association, LLC, doing business as Hollywood Casino and at Penn National Racecourse, respectfully request that the board approve the consent agreement and stipulations of settlement, and that Mountain View Thoroughbred Racing Association, LLC, doing business as Hollywood Casino at Penn National Racecourse, pay a civil penalty of $97,500, as well as a $2,500 administrative fee for costs incurred by board staff in connection with investigations into this matter.
Excellent recitation of the facts. Thank you, Mr. Crow.
Thank you.
Penn, would you like to address the board?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. I will keep it similarly very, very brief. I think as you heard yesterday in our confidential submission, Penn Entertainment, the parent company of both Mountain View and Penn Interactive Ventures, takes very, very seriously the security of our interactive gaming websites. In this case, we were subject to some fraudulent activity by, as Mr. Crow mentioned, 29 perpetrators. As we discussed yesterday in our confidential submission, we took steps in real time while this conduct was occurring to stop it. And we have since made very, very significant investments in procedures, in equipment, in personnel, to maintain the security of our interactive gaming websites. And I just wanted to note for the record that during the time in question, which was December of 20 through March of 18, overall, there were over 152,000 accounts that were opened. And so the 266 fraudulent accounts at that time amounted to 0.17% of our accounts. That said, obviously we want to strive as best we can to be as error-free and perfect as we can. We'll continue to do that. And again, I just want to emphasize from our submissions yesterday that we've made significant investments, and we will continue to do that and do the absolute best we can to prevent this type of activity from occurring in the future.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board approve the consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and Mountain View Thoroughbred Racing Association, LLC, doing business as Hollywood Casino at Penn National, as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Manzano Diaz, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and Category 4 licensee, Mountain View Thoroughbred Racing Association, LLC, doing business as Hollywood Casino York. The matter will be presented by Assistant Enforcement Counsel Juan Sanchez. Representatives for the licensee are present. At this time, I request that those individuals please introduce themselves for the record. Is this you, Alex?
Alex Vizda, HVIZDA, Director of Compliance.
And Mr. Vizda is a licensed attorney, so as a result, we may move forward.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Juan Sanchez, SANCHEZ, the Office of Enforcement Counsel. This consent agreement involves 3 underage gaming incidents at Hollywood Casino York. First, a 19-year-old with the initials LS, who was a Hollywood Casino York new employee dealer in training on July 12, 2022, told staff that he used a fake identification and entered the gaming floor. The casino reported that on December 23, 2021, December 28, 2021, and February 13, 2022, LS played 3 table games for 116 minutes. LS obtained a player's card with his fake identification. Hollywood Casino York rescinded LS's employment offer. Second, a 20-year-old with the initials AB entered the gaming floor on December 4th, 2021. A security officer stopped AB at the entrance, reviewed AB's military identification, and then allowed her onto the gaming floor. AB was on the gaming floor for approximately 32 minutes. AB played 3 slot machines for 6 minutes. Hollywood Casino York staff reviewed AB's military identification before she could buy chips or play a table game, realized AB was underage, and escorted her out of the casino. As a result of this incident, Pennsylvania State Police troopers were contacted but did not file a criminal citation. AB was not served and did not consume alcohol. Third, a 20-year-old with the initials JS entered the gaming floor on June 3rd, 2022. A security officer stopped JS at the entrance, scanned his fake identification, and allowed JS to enter the gaming floor, despite the identification scanner indicating problems with the identification. Subsequently, JS was able to obtain a player's card from the main cage, exited the gaming floor, and re-entered the gaming floor without being carded. At the sports bar, a bartender reviewed JS's fake identification, served JS an alcoholic drink, which JS consumed. Upon another attempted re-entry onto the gaming floor by JS, an assistant security manager received notification of a failed identification, learned that JS used the fake identification, and stopped him from entering the gaming floor. The staff then rescanned his fake identification, which indicated problems with the identification. Springett's Ferry Township Police Department cited JS with a summary citation, underage possession of alcohol. JS was evicted from all Hollywood casino properties until December 26, 2023. After further investigation, it was discovered that JS had previously entered Hollywood Casino York 3 times while underage, on August 14, 2021, August 15, 2021, and October 2, 2021. These underage gaming violations were not caught at or near the time of the incident, and as a result, the casino reported after discovery that JS gamed 67 minutes. The Office of Enforcement Counsel and Hollywood Casino York respectfully request that the board approve the consent agreement and stipulations of settlement, which requires Hollywood Casino York to pay a civil penalty of $50,000 as well as $2,500 administrative fee for costs incurred by the board staff in connection with this matter. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to address them at this time.
Hollywood, would you like to address the board?
Yes, just briefly. Madam Chair, members of the board, good morning. I'm Alex Vizda, I'm the Director of Compliance. I'm here on behalf of our General Manager, Ruben Warren, who is attending out-of-state leadership meetings today. Prior to him leaving, we met extensively with our team to discuss these incidents. And we want to assure the board that as soon as we learned of these incidents, we immediately reported them to our on-site casino compliance staff. And then we used all available resources that we had to try to figure out what could have happened here. Now, in terms of the ID scanners, they can only handle so much data. So by way of example, in 2023, York's did over 108,000 ID verifications. So if all of those were saved in there going back even a year, it would result in the system basically melting down and you wouldn't be able to do it, which is why we only cut it off after a certain number of days and we don't have the IDs to go back to. But we used our gaming system to try to identify what these players were doing and, again, immediately reported it. In terms of the remedial measures, what Ruben always stresses is it's people and technology. And from the people side of it, that starts at the top. So these incidents, the most recent one occurred in June of 2022. It was late July of 2022 when our new security manager started down at York. And the first thing he did was go on a hiring spree because during this period, which was sort of that still coming out of COVID, still people not working. Part of it was we were very stretched on staff. You don't have fresh eyes. You're working longer hours. That creates room for errors. So he beefed up our staffing numbers. And then probably most importantly is he went through and redid all of our training. And one of the things that he does now is he twice annually tests everybody in his department on identifying fake IDs, and then for non-traditional IDs, passports, military IDs, where the date of birth is on there so that when a security officer gets it, they're not panicked or confused. I also want to assure the board that when you dip an ID in the Veridoc system, if there is a hit, whether it's a self-excluded person or an underage person, it creates an audible alarm at both fire command and surveillance so that we're not just relying on that security officer at the podium to call it in and make the right decision. We have secondary review there. And then in November of 2023, we added a passport scanner that Veridox offers. Previously, you couldn't scan the passports in the dipping system, so you just have to hold it on the podium so that surveillance could get a shot of it, which they still do, but now we have the ability to authenticate those passports through the Veridox system. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions for you.
Any questions or comments? Commissioner Regan.
Just curious, with regard to JS, it seems like the system worked. It alerted that the ID was fake. I'm just curious as to why the security officer let him through anyway.
Yeah, so some of the security officers, and again, it's part of their training of trust the technology, will think that the ID is worn or dirty, and that's the reason they're getting the error on there. So what happened in his case was it went off. The security officer did not follow his training, which is why he was given a final written warning. But that alert that I was talking about that went to Fire Command and to surveillance, Fire Command got it, and then they came out to investigate. Unfortunately, in the time period between when he got on the floor and when they were able to find him and look at the ID again is when he was able to game.
So the security officer heard the alert, but just decided that the machine had made a mistake?
That's correct. And so that's why we have the secondary word alerts and surveillance, so that we're having another set of, two sets of eyes, Fire Command and surveillance on it. And that's why we go right to a final written warning. So even if you've been an exemplary employee where you had notice here that this was an issue and you didn't follow your training, you go right to a final written warning.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Manzano-Diaz.
The backup system that you're talking about that alerts the other two, was that in place at the time that this happened, or is that something new that you instituted after the fact?
That was in place at the time this happened. So I believe it was 11:23 when JS's ID was scanned, and they were able to find him and confront him at 11:43, I think it was. So it's just a matter of the security supervisor getting there and being able to find the person and then review the ID.
Okay.
Commissioner Dillon?
As far as the employee, she worked at your casino, correct? Wasn't there the first person?
The dealer?
LC, the dealer?
He, yes.
He or she?
Well, he came in for dealer school, so you have to do the 180 hours of training. And on the first day, we talk about responsible gaming. And he said, well, I've been in here before and I'm 19. And so we investigated and we booted him right that day.
So you didn't catch him afterwards, after he made that comment, you just realized he was here. Did you go back, or was it?
Right, so
when did the incident occur? After he was an employee or before he was employed?
Before he was an employee.
Okay.
So he came in December of 21 and February of 22. He then came to dealer school in July of 22. And as soon as he said that, and we went back and we investigated, we fired him that day.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Manzano-Diaz moves that the board approve the consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and Mountain View Thoroughbred Racing Association, LLC, doing business as Hollywood Casino York, as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
The next four matters on the agenda consist of enforcement actions in which the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed complaints seeking the revocation of permits or registrations previously issued by the board. The complaint in each matter has been filed with the board's Office of Hearings and Appeal and properly served upon the individual named in each complaint. The individual named in each complaint failed to respond within 30 days as required by board regulation. As a result, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a request for default judgment in each instance and properly served the same upon each respondent. Therefore, the facts in each complaint are deemed admitted. All filed documents have been provided to the board, and the matters are presently ripe for the board's consideration. In each matter, we will provide a brief summary of the facts and make a request for the appropriate board action.
Again, Juan Sanchez. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the revocation of the non-gaming employee registration issued to Doug Homan. Mr. Homan was previously employed as an EVS attendant at Rivers Casino Pittsburgh. Rivers Casino Pittsburgh terminated Mr. Homan's employment for stealing a $500 chip from a patron, which was returned to the patron. The casino notified Pennsylvania State Police, who responded, but no criminal charges were filed against Mr. Homan arising out of this incident. After his termination, Elizabeth Township Police Department arrested and criminally charged Mr. Homan with a third-degree misdemeanor harassment and a summary disorderly conduct because he made numerous threats to come to Rivers Casino Pittsburgh to cause physical harm to employees who were the parents of his ex-girlfriend. The misdemeanor charge was withdrawn, and Mr. Homan pleaded guilty to a summary disorderly conduct offense. After his termination, Pennsylvania State Police also arrested and criminally charged Mr. Homan with a first-degree felony burglary, as well as third-degree felonies, criminal trespass, and theft by unlawful taking for allegedly drugging an adult female, entering her residence without permission, and taking over $5,000 in personal property. All of the charges were withdrawn, and Mr. Homan pleaded guilty to a summary defiant trespass. He is not currently employed in Pennsylvania's gaming industry. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board revoke the non-gaming employee registration issued to Doug Homan.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board approve the revocation of Doug Holman's non-gaming employee registration for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the revocation of the non-gaming employee registration issued to Owen Kiggins. Mr. Kiggins was previously employed as a beverage bartender at Rivers Casino Pittsburgh. Rivers Casino Pittsburgh terminated Mr. Kiggins' employment for unauthorized possession of property because he stole cash from cash registers 15 times in the total amount of $4,450. Pennsylvania State Police arrested and criminally charged Mr. Kiggins with a third-degree felony, theft by unlawful taking. Mr. Kiggins pleaded guilty to summary disorderly conduct and was court-ordered to pay full restitution to the casino. He is not currently employed in Pennsylvania's gaming industry. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board revoke the non-gaming employee registration issued to Owen Kiggins.
Any questions or comments from the board? I have a question. This person was taking hundreds of dollars out of the cash register, and it took quite a while for them to determine that he was stealing. Was anything done with regard to training of the staff at this location as a result of this?
Where was he taking? Was it a restaurant?
Bar, casino.
Not sure. With regard to, it was occurred at the bar. So what happened after the person was caught, Rivers went, was it Rivers? The casino went back and trained their surveillance staff in order to catch these matters a lot quicker. And also they trained the management employees with regard to, monitoring the underrings and taking that into consideration. They also trained the employees on staff about what could occur if they go that route. I don't want to get into too much detail because their training was in depth in warning the employees about criminal activity.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board approve the revocation of Owen Kiggins' non-gaming employee registration for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Kelsey Scrotto, SCIRROTTO, Assistant Enforcement Counsel with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the revocation of the non-gaming employee registration issued to Felicity Cole. While working as a bartender at Mount Airy Casino Resort, Ms. Cole stole money from Mount Airy by undercharging or not ringing up transactions and then keeping the patron's payment for herself. Police were notified, but no charges were filed. She was terminated from her position at Mount Airy as a result and is not currently employed in Pennsylvania's gaming industry. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board revoke the non-gaming employee registration issued to Felicity Cole.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board approve the revocation of Felicity Cole's non-gaming employee registration for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Dillon seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes.
Good morning, Sarah Kolesar, KOLESAR, Enforcement Counsel with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the revocation of the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Bobby Ross. Mr. Ross was previously employed as a table games dealer at Live Casino Philadelphia. Mr. Ross was acting as a table games dealer when he intentionally dealt in a manner inconsistent with the rules governing four-card poker. More specifically, Mr. Ross engaged in paying patrons on losing hands, overpaying patrons on winning hands, paying incorrect odds that resulted in overpayment, in viewing cards prematurely, and then advising patrons on what to bet and how much to bet. As a result of his actions, Mr. Ross was issued a criminal citation and ultimately entered a guilty plea to disorderly conduct, hazardous physical offense. He is not currently employed in Pennsylvania's gaming industry. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board revoke the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Bobby Ross.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dillon moves that the board approve the revocation of Bobby Ross gaming employee occupation permit for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Hickernell seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
The remaining matters on the agenda consist of enforcement actions in which the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed petitions seeking the involuntary exclusion of individuals whose presence in a licensed facility are inimical to the interests of the Commonwealth and or licensed gaming therein. In each instance, a petition for exclusion has been filed with the Board's Office of Hearings and Appeal and properly served upon the individual named in the petition. The individual named in each petition failed to respond within 30 days as required by board regulation. As a result, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a request for default judgment in each instance and properly served the same upon each individual. Therefore, all facts in each petition are deemed admitted. All filed documents have been provided to the board, and the matters are presently ripe for the board's consideration. In each instance, if the board orders the proposed exclusion, each individual's photo, personal identifiers, and a summary of the inimical conduct will be placed on the board's public website. Once again, in each matter, we will provide a brief summary of the facts and make a request for the appropriate board action.
Once again, Sarah Colasar. The next matter on the agenda is a request to place Russell Henderson on the involuntary exclusion list. Mr. Henderson left one 9-year-old child unattended in his vehicle in the parking lot at Presque Isle Downs Casino while he went inside to game. Surveillance personnel identified the presence of an unattended minor within 1 minute of Mr. Henderson leaving the child unattended, and security arrived at the vehicle within 2 minutes of notification. Mr. Henderson was approached by security personnel and Pennsylvania State Police inside Presque Isle Downs prior to returning to his vehicle and exiting the premises. In total, the child was attended for 3 minutes before security personnel arrived on scene, and Mr. Henderson was away from the child for 15 minutes. No criminal charges were filed. Mr. Henderson was permanently evicted from the casino for his actions. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board place Russell Henderson on the involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Hickernell moves that the board approve the addition of Russell Henderson to the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board's involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Manzano Diaz, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Once again, Kelsey Scarrato with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter for the board's consideration is a request to place Denise Connor on the involuntary exclusion list. Ms. Connor left 3 children, ages 12, 7, and 4 years old, unattended in her vehicle in Presque Isle Downs and Casino's parking lot. The vehicle was parked in a space reserved for the Pennsylvania State Horse Racing Commission. Security discovered the vehicle after being notified by a patron. The children were left unattended for approximately 1 hour and 15 minutes before security arrived at the vehicle. Police were notified and issued a warning, but she was not criminally charged. Ms. Connor was evicted as a result of her actions. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board place Denise Connor on the involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Manzano Diaz moves that the board approve the addition of Denise Connor to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted. And just for the record, it's Dianise, it's not Denise like D-E-N-I-S-E.
The next matter for the board's consideration is a request to place Teresa Johnson on the involuntary exclusion list. Ms. Johnson left her 12-year-old child unattended in her vehicle at the valet entrance at Hollywood Casino at Penn National Racecourse. Security discovered the unattended minor 14 minutes later. Police were notified and spoke with Ms. Johnson. She was not criminally charged and was evicted for 7 days as a result. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board place Teresa Johnson on the involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board approve the addition of Teresa Johnson to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a request to place Devin Melchor on the board's involuntary exclusion list. Mr. Melchor was at Parks Casino when he conspired with another individual to observe, stalk, and rob a patron's winnings. Mr. Melchor and the other individual observed the patron gaming at multiple tables for over 7.5 hours. The patron cashed out $10,150 at the main cage before leaving the casino in his vehicle. Mr. Melchor and the other individual got into their own vehicle and followed the patron out of the parking lot. They followed the patron to the patron's home, where Mr. Melchor's accomplice shot and killed the patron with a handgun in an attempt to steal the patron's winnings. A New Jersey grand jury indicted Mr. Melchor of conspiracy, robbery, felony murder, possession of weapon for unlawful purposes, and unlawful possession of a weapon. The charges are pending and a court hearing is scheduled for February 22nd, 2024. Mr. Melchor was permanently evicted by Parks. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board place Devin Melchor on the involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Regan moves that the board approve the addition of Devin Melchor to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes.
Again, Juan Sanchez. The next two matters on the agenda are related and are requests to place Rondell Draper and Starona Moore McGriff on the involuntary exclusion list. With the board's permission, I will read one set of facts and then request that each individual would be placed on the exclusion list. Ms. Draper and Ms. Moore McGriff played a table game at Live Casino Philadelphia and colluded with the table games dealer and 3 other patrons or otherwise cheated, capped, and pinched wagers and were paid out for losing wagers owed to Live Casino Philadelphia. Rondell Draper received a total of $7,375, and Starona Moore McGriff received a total of $625 in ill-gotten gains. Pennsylvania State Police arrested and charged both with third-degree felonies and first-degree misdemeanors. Ms. Moore McGriff's criminal case is awaiting trial or final disposition. Ms. Draper pleaded guilty to a third-degree felony, conspiracy to commit theft by deception, false impression. Live Casino Philadelphia permanently evicted both from the casino for their actions. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board place Starona Moore McGriff on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board approve the addition of Starona Moore McGriff to the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board's involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Dillon seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Chair, members of the board, John.
Whoa.
Did I skip one?
No, he has to do
At this time,
Draper.
one more motion. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board place Rondell Draper on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dillon moves that the board approve the addition of Rondell Draper to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Hickernell seconds.
All in favor? All opposed? Motion's adopted.
My apologies. John Crow once again for the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a petition to place Benjamin Rodriguez on the involuntary gaming exclusion list. Mr. Rodriguez created and accessed 17 accounts on the BetMGM iGaming platform using the personal identifying information of other individuals. All accounts were permanently closed by BetMGM. After the fraud was discovered, no criminal charges were filed against Mr. Rodriguez. The Office of Enforcement Counsel now requests that the board place Benjamin Rodriguez on the involuntary iGaming exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Hickernell moves that the board approve the addition of Benjamin Rodriguez to the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board's interactive involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Manzano Diaz, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Thank you. That concludes our business.
Thank you, Cyrus. The last item on the agenda today is public comment. Is there anyone in the room that would like to address the board? Seeing no one, that concludes today's meeting. The next public meeting of the board will be held on Wednesday, March 20th, 2024, at 10 a.m. at this location. And now may I please have a motion to adjourn?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Manzano Diaz moves to adjourn.
Commissioner Ralston, second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.